FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Welcome. You are listening to the Financial Survival Network, and I'm Kerry Lutz. Today is June 23rd, 2020. Well, gradually the country's opening up, some places quicker than others. There's spikes, there's surges, all of these things. How much difference do they make? In Florida, here where I am, we're getting lots more cases, but lots less deaths and hospitalizations. Hospitalizations up very slightly, not taxing the intensive care units among the state's hospitals very greatly, and the emergency rooms. And, well, we need to get to the bottom of this. Was the cure worse than the disease? Was the lockdown worse than the actual virus, the effects of it? Well, you can be the judge of that. I'd like to know your opinion. Why don't you send me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. That's kl@kerrylutz.com. Right now, we've got noted healthcare expert. He's been on the show with us a number of times. She's going to bring some clarity to this. I'm talking about Sally Pipes from Pacific Research Institute, and you can find her work at pacificresearch.org. Sally, it's wonderful to have you back on. Is this a case where the cure really is worse than the disease?
Well, I think it is, and certainly it's been going on. I mean, the lockdown in most states and counties started, in mid-March, and now we're at June 23rd. So, things are gradually opening up. But I saw in the Wall Street Journal that, New York City phase 2, that businesses can open, and yet very few companies, their people are going back to work. I know a number of people in the investment business say they don't think their offices will open until September. So there are major impacts, not only on the economy and on patients, but certainly, this is going to have a tremendous impact on the housing market, the rental market, the office market, because I've talked to a number of business people who say that they're not going to reopen their offices. Everybody is going to be telecommuting. But I think, between Governor Cuomo in New York, Mayor de Blasio in New York, Gavin Newsom, the governor of California, and many people at the county level, Mayor Garcetti in Los Angeles, they have really overreacted. And, the problem is that we're seeing a lot of people have not gone to the doctor when they've had symptoms for strokes or heart or cancer. And so this is very detrimental to people's long-term health.
Yeah.
And so I think the cure, and it's certainly time, as you say, in Florida, there may be more cases, but they're not resulting in more deaths. A lot of the cases, you'd think right now there are about 2.3 million cases of COVID-19 in the U.S., 122,000 deaths. And people say, well, that's, in the media, well, that's the second highest number of deaths in the world. But on the other hand, we have a population of 330 million people. So you have to take that, on a per capita basis. And we do know from the government, from the CDC and other agencies, that 42% of the COVID deaths have been in nursing homes. And a lot of the deaths, of course, are in New York, high density area, Kerry. So very, you really have to, analyze this from an area by area, and what is the impact? How many people are actually dying versus the number of people who have recovered? And out of the 122,000 deaths in the U.S., 722,000 people have recovered, and many of the people that I know that have got it, were sick for a week or two, and then we're back at work.
Yeah, and look, this has been called like the boomer remover disease because it's basically has its worst effects on the baby boomers who were born from 46 to 64. So someone who was born in 1964 is 56 years old. Even it's really the older boomers, 65 and over. Luckily, I don't fall into that quite there, right, with additional comorbidities. And really, right, for the rest of the population, it just was like kind of a non-event. Yes, there is here and there were deaths in all age groups, but they were the exception. And yet, what we saw was a shutdown of the entire economy, of the entire population, regardless of your risk of getting the disease. And this to me just seemed to be sheer madness from the get-go, because it's easier to protect the people who are most vulnerable, you would think, than it would be to protect everybody from the possibility of getting it. And now in Florida, we see that the median age for getting COVID has dropped to 37, and the number of deaths are dropping. Maybe it's good that these younger people are getting it and not getting too sick, because that's how you build herd immunity.
Right. And when you think about it, the number of people who are getting it, the younger people, it tends to be, for the most part, not very serious. And yet, in terms of the economy, the stimulus packages, the CARES Act. I mean, look at I've talked to a number of people who, own restaurants, and their restaurants have been closed. And many times when they're about to open, their owners have asked people to come back, and their employees say, well, I'm getting $600 a week supplemental in addition to my unemployment insurance from the county or from the state. And so, why would I come back to work? And so this expires July 31st, but it may be extended to January 31st. But some of these programs are causing people to choose not to work. It's a disincentive when you offer so much government support.
Yeah, clearly that's the case. And in the new stimulus, they're talking about giving people a bonus to go back to work, giving them an extra $450 a week. That was one proposal I heard bandied about. I mean, it's crazy. Exactly.
It's crazy. It is crazy. And I think a lot of this, Kerry, is, there's a debate going on between people in the public health business, the Dr. Anthony Fauci's, who have scared people in the media, has just run with it, versus the economists, the Larry Kudlow, who has just come out and said, there isn't going to be a second wave. We don't know that. There's so much we don't know about the COVID, but certainly we have really got a major economic crisis in this country, and a lot of it has to do with the media scaring people, plus the fact that a lot of politicians, particularly on the left, we've got Black Lives Matter, we have all of this going on. I think it's going to be very, very difficult, because the progressives right now seem to be winning the war, and a lot of this stuff with COVID has moved into the whole political debate. And so it's Mr. Trump versus Mr. Biden, the Republicans versus the Democrats. And, it's going to be I think it's going to be a very tough election on November 3rd. I just don't know what's going to happen.
Well, we all have our opinions about that, and I guess we're going to see. Now, the idea of what these governors did, we won't mention the party affiliation other than Cuomo, Whitmer, Governor Wolf, Newsom, and the guy from New Jersey, Phil, whatever his name is. I can't remember it off the top of my head. But they sent infected patients to nursing homes with the most vulnerable people imaginable. Shouldn't they be called on to account for this?
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next.
Financial Survival Network is brought to you today by Orin Resources, a junior exploration company with the appetite of a major. It's hot on the trail of the next globally significant discovery, creating enormous potential upside for you, the shareholder. Orin is one of the most aggressive exploration companies pursuing high-grade, scalable gold and copper deposits, and has a premier 7-project portfolio, including its 2 flagships, Committee Bay in the Arctic and Sombrero in Peru. Orin's unparalleled technical team and highly experienced management has a history of success in advancing and monetizing exploration assets. No wonder Orin's been called one of the best in the junior exploration sector. Orin trades on the TSX and the NYSE under AUG. To learn more, go to orinresources.com. That's AURYN resources.com.
The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.
Yes, exactly. And, certainly Governor Cuomo, who is probably the biggest person responsible for that decision. I mean, he's sort of, wringing his hands and saying, well, this is not my issue. It's not my fault. It is his fault because this really caused a tremendous surge in COVID deaths and cases in the state of New York, and in particular in New York City. They should be responsible. But, politicians have a great way of sort of getting themselves off the hook. But as I said, 42% of the COVID deaths have been in nursing homes. So if you look at 122,000 deaths, you're looking probably at 50,000 of them have been people who, were in nursing homes, and many of them have, other illnesses along with the COVID, whether it's cancer or, heart issues or whatever. So this is, they really should be taking responsibility for this. But as you know, Kerry, they probably will wring their hands, as I say, and say, not my fault.
Yeah, well, it seems to me there should be some criminal accountability here, because we knew from the get-go that these populations of elderly were the most vulnerable. And in Florida, in my state, the governor sent out the National Guard. He got all the nursing homes, wouldn't let them take infected patients, got the infected patients out of there. We still had 1,000 nursing home deaths. But in New York, they're estimating it's as high as 12,000. We don't even know the real number because Governor Cuomo has been busy covering up by not including deaths that take place in a hospital, even though they were contracted in a nursing home. Maybe some of it would have happened anyway, but we knew from the first outbreak in Washington state took place in a nursing home and we knew from China, from Italy, from France, we knew from all these countries that these people were vulnerable and they did nothing to help them.
Right. And the UK too. So, but I am heartened that Matt Hancock, the Minister of Health in the UK, has said they're looking to loosen up on their social distancing, 2 meters, which is just over 6 feet, down to perhaps 1 meter, 3 feet, and to loosen up on the quarantine issue. But, so much of this I was just reading this morning, British Columbia, where I'm from in Canada, which has single payer, they can't, the government health system can't cope with this. In British Columbia, where I'm from, there are 30,000 surgeries were canceled because of COVID. They have a backlog of 63,000 other surgeries that were already people on a waiting list. And therefore, they say it's going to take them 2 years to get over, to, deal with this, with this backlog. And some of these people will die, if they have cancer, heart, stroke issues, being on a waiting list. And this is why we have to be so careful not to get single payer Medicare for all in this country. And yet if Mr. Biden wins the election, as we know, he's talking about, well, I'm not for single payer Medicare for all. I'm for, adding a government insurance plan, a public option into people's choices. And that is really a stepping stone to single payer, because the government insurance plan will be priced cheaper than what private insurers can offer. And ultimately, private insurance will be pushed out of the market, and we'll all be left in single payer, and we'll face issues like Canada and the National Health Service in the UK, where the response has been terrible because they don't have the hospital beds, they don't have the latest equipment, things to treat people with issues like COVID.
Yeah, exactly. And really, it's just a disaster economically, health-wise. A lot more people potentially will lose their lives from not being treated than who actually lost it from COVID. We don't even know the real COVID total because, as we know, the CDC put out some type of standards for the death certificate for COVID patient that if they had it, even if they didn't test positive, potentially they would still be treated as if it was a COVID death. We've seen the videos coming out of New York from nurses in Elmhurst Hospital, which became the epicenter of the epicenter, where patients were testing negative for COVID, still put it on their death certificate. We've seen the videos of it. It's not even subject to contention.
Right. And, there was a letter to President Trump from 600 doctors, and they say that 150,000 patients have had their cancer go undetected during the lockdown. And then even Rush Limbaugh, if you listen to his show out of Florida, he's often said, well, my chemotherapy, treatment has been canceled or delayed and postponed because, of dealing with COVID. I mean, if you have cancer, you want to be able to get your treatment or your surgery, as soon as possible.
Yeah, I mean, totally logical. And the other thing isn't this pushing us closer towards socialized medicine anyway? The federal government's paying all the COVID-related expenses to the hospitals. If for each death, $13,000. If there's a ventilator involved, $39,000. It's pushing us closer to socialized medicine anyway, isn't it?
Well, it is. And that is my worry. And what my fight has been, for so many years to avoid getting Medicare for all, which Bernie Sanders, as you know, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have been so adamant about. And of course, they're saying that if we had Medicare for all, the COVID would have been a lot less serious. Well, look at some of the problems with the testing and with the various kits. The problems were all with the CDC and government agencies. So if you want the government to run your healthcare system, these are the kinds of problems that you will see. And you'll see, as I just talked about, long waits for care, surgeries being canceled, ration care. The elderly won't get the kind of treatment they need quickly. And so, this is just a disaster. And if you look at the UK, you look at Canada during this COVID crisis, they really have had tremendous problems. They don't have the capacity, and they can't, build capacity because government is only going to spend, a certain percentage, 11% in Canada of GDP on healthcare. We spend 18%, but we have, I would say the best healthcare system in the world. We need to make a few changes, but, we want the private sector. We want doctors to be able to practice the kind of medicine that they're trained for. We want the best and brightest young people to go into medicine and not be worried, not applying because they don't want to be government civil servant doctors.
Yeah. Yeah. All these things are true, and they're all like very serious concerns. And it makes you wonder what the new normal is going to be once this new normal emerges.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know how restaurants are going to survive, with the social distancing of tables. I mean, restaurants don't make a lot of money as it is. It's very, very difficult.
Tough,
so you have to, and the fact that, the waiters have to wear masks and a lot of them are wearing these plastic shields. I mean, this is all, I think we're going to see a lot of restaurants go under.
Yeah. Very, very sad for sure. And then the other thing is, so we got the CDC, the WHO, the World Health Organization. They become like these gods. First, the CDC says, "Oh, masks, you don't need them. They do more harm than good." Now they flip-flop 2 months later. "Oh no, you should always be wearing a mask." We've got the CDC guidelines for treating COVID-19 in the emergency room. They said, do not use corticosteroids. Do not use it. Now we've got a study that says it cuts the mortality rate by a third in very sick patients. And the emergency room doctors have been using them from the get-go and have ignored, for the most part, the better emergency rooms, ignored the CDC guidelines. And they keep giving us conflicting guidelines. And nobody even knows why 6 feet social distancing is the magic number. Why isn't it 12 feet? Why isn't it 3 feet like in England? Or why isn't it 4.5 feet? There is no science behind that social distancing guideline, is there?
Well, no. And, we've seen, if you look at the protests after the death of George Floyd, I mean, look, just thousands of people, whether it's New York, Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, anywhere, Minneapolis. If you look at the protest, there was no social distancing among those thousands of people, and we've seen that was late May, early June. So we're not seeing a tremendous increase in the number of COVID cases from these protests. So I think it's clear that I don't know where that number came from, but I think as Matt Hancock, the Minister of Health in the UK, said, this just doesn't seem to be. There's no science behind that social distancing regulation.
Yeah, and another thing they told us, don't go to the beach. The beach is the worst place. Don't go to a park. Don't go in a pool. And yet now we know outdoor transmission, according to a Chinese study of 7,000 infected people, is extremely rare, if non-existent. And it makes total sense because we got sun, we've got ultraviolet rays that kill it off, and the sunlight is the best disinfectant.
Right, and heat as well. I mean, when you see a lot of the cases in the meat packing plants, they're very, very cold. But heat, and they said that in Singapore, that heat and humidity, the COVID virus doesn't like that. But the outdoors is it should be absolutely fine. I mean, California now Governor Newsom has a mandated mask order. Well, if I go out for a walk in my neighborhood and I don't see another soul, why should I, be wearing a mask? It's just not necessary. But, the beach, all these things, it's become I think, Kerry, the issue is this has really become a political battle more than a health battle, and is an economic disaster for our country.
Right. And it's okay for the protesters to go riot, but for people who are demonstrating, reopening their business, getting back to normal, those people were a danger. And really, it's just,
Yes, exactly. So I don't know. This is going to be, I mean, as I say, New York is phase 2, businesses are opening, but they say the real estate brokers this morning in the press said that only about 10 to 20% of businesses in New York City are actually opening, even though, it's allowed. People have been scared to death by the people like Dr. Fauci and the mainstream media that have just terrified people without the scientific background to say that a lot of this, you don't get it from just walking by somebody. I mean, you have to spend very close quarters time with somebody if you're going to catch it. Walking down the street and passing, say if you have the COVID, it's not going to be passed that way. It's not also passed onto surfaces that that there's been a lot saying, oh well, you can pick it up off a door handle like 2 or 3 days later. That's just not proved correct.
Yeah. Yep. Totally. And there's just so much disinformation going around here. You don't really know what to do. Well, one thing we do know to do is read your work and listen to your interviews, Sally. Where I guess I gave the website where we find you, which is pacificresearch.org. You can find Sally's work there. And hey, we'll keep an eye on the debate. Hopefully we'll have you back on shortly and we'll have better answers.
Because it's going to be a while. Well, we're going to get answers, but it's going to take some time. So I look forward to it, Kerry. Take care.
All right. You too. And hey, any questions or comments for Sally, myself, email kl@kerrylutz.com, Twitter feed @KerryLutz, Facebook page, Financial Survival Network, the website where you get your free newsletter subscription, financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Sally, good luck, and we will talk to you again soon.
Perfect. Thank you. Take care.
FSN Radio. It's all about what's next. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and sign up for your free weekly newsletter. You'll also get 3 free reports. The Financial Survival Network. It's all about what's next.